Welcome to Hidden Tales. Have you ever felt a forbidden spark, a moment that set your heart racing, knowing it shouldn't? Today, we're diving into a fleeting, dramatic, and sensual love story about Mark and Natalie, a young man and his best friend's mother. Will they dare cross the line? Hit subscribe and ring the bell to find out. Now, step into the story. A light drizzle falls over a quiet street near Lake Michigan, Chicago, casting a misty gray over the air. Mark Taylor, a 24-year-old with a worn backpack slung over his shoulder, walks along the wet sidewalk. He moved from Portland to Chicago just a month ago, scraping by as a freelance video editor. The gig pays enough for coffee and a few meals, but Chicago's expensive, and Mark hasn't found a permanent place to stay. He crashes on friends' couches, living day to day, hoping for a small apartment. With his tousled hair, soulful eyes, and a rugged smile that puts people at ease, Mark blends in but feels out of place. Like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit this city's picture, Jake, Mark's best friend from a film project, offered him a place to crash for a few days. "My place is big. My mom's chill. Stay as long as you need," Jake said, his tone easygoing. Mark agreed, not knowing this decision would change everything. Jake's house sits on a quiet street, a cozy brownstone with ivy climbing the walls and warm light glowing through the windows. When Mark knocks, a woman opens the door. It's Natalie, Jake's mom. She's about 42 but looks barely 30, with sleek, dark hair cascading over her shoulders, sharp eyes, and a slender frame. She wears a soft silk blouse, its pale blue hue hugging her figure, accentuating the curve of her collarbone as she leans to greet him. "You're Mark, Jake's friend?" she asks, her voice warm and smooth, her gaze sweeping over him like she's reading his every secret. Mark nods, a bit flustered. "Yeah. Thanks for letting me stay." Natalie smiles, a mix of kindness and mystery. "Come in. Don't be shy. This house always has room for Jake's friends." Dinner unfolds in the small kitchen, the rich aroma of homemade chili filling the air. Jake sits across from Mark, cracking jokes about his architecture classes, his laughter loud. Natalie sits at the head of the table, her delicate hands holding a spoon, occasionally glancing at Mark. She asks about his work, her tone curious but not prying. "You're a video editor? That must be exciting." Mark shrugs, trying to play it cool. "It's all right. Mostly cutting clips, adding effects. Not exactly Hollywood, but it pays the bills." Natalie nods, her eyes lingering on him a beat too long. "You don't strike me as someone who's just getting by," she says, her voice soft but loaded with meaning. Mark feels his cheeks heat up, quickly looking down at his bowl to dodge her gaze. Jake laughs, oblivious. "Mom, don't make my friend nervous." Mark's super chill. After dinner, the three settle on the couch to watch a comedy flick. Mark sits in the corner trying to focus on the screen, but his eyes keep drifting to Natalie. She lounges comfortably, legs tucked up, her silk blouse slipping slightly to reveal the smooth line of her collarbone. Mark swallows hard, telling himself to stop. She's his best friend's mom, nearly 20 years older, from a different world. But every time she laughs or turns to ask him something, a jolt runs through him. "You liking the movie, Mark?" she asks, leaning toward him, her hair brushing her shoulder. "Yeah, it's fun," he replies, his voice a little hoarse. She smiles, her eyes hinting at something unspoken. When the movie ends, Jake yawns and stands. "I'm crashing." "Mark, you're good on the couch, right?" "Mom, can you make pancakes tomorrow?" Natalie nods, smiling warmly at her son. "Sure, sleep tight." Jake disappears upstairs, leaving Mark and Natalie in the quiet living room. Mark starts setting up the couch, grabbing blankets to avoid facing her. Natalie stands, stepping closer, holding out a pillow. "Sleep well, Mark," she says, her voice soft. Her fingers brush his for a split second as she hands him the pillow, sending a shock through him. "Thanks," he mumbles, trying to sound calm. She holds his gaze for a moment, her eyes deep and unreadable, then turns and heads upstairs. Mark lies on the couch, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. He thinks of Natalie's eyes, her voice, the fleeting touch of her hand. A dangerous, forbidden feeling stirs in him. Mark wakes early, the city still cloaked in fog. The house is quiet, save for the distant chirping of birds outside. He heads to the kitchen for a glass of water and finds Natalie at the sink, wearing a fitted white tee and black leggings, her hair tied up, a few damp strands clinging to her neck. She smells faintly of lavender soap fresh from a shower. She turns, sees him, and smiles. "Morning," she says, her voice soft, grabbing a mug from the shelf. Morning, Mark replies, trying not to notice how the shirt hugs her curves. He opens the fridge, grabbing a water bottle just to have something to do. Natalie brews coffee, leaning against the counter, her eyes flicking over him. Sleep okay? She asks. Yeah, the couch was comfier than I expected, Mark says, his voice catching slightly. She smiles, tilting her head, her eyes sharp. Do you always stare at people like that, Mark? The question hits like a dart, catching him off guard. He freezes, unsure how to respond. I didn't mean to, he stammers, cheeks burning. Natalie sips her coffee, her gaze unwavering. I don't mind, she says, her voice low and teasing. Just curious. Before Mark can reply, Jake bursts in, yawning. Mom, where's the coffee? He breaks the tension, oblivious to the charged moment. Natalie turns back to the counter, unfazed. Just brewed, she says calmly. Mark sits at the table, heart pounding, trying to act normal, but he knows something's shifted. He feels a forbidden spark, a desire he shouldn't have, and he knows Natalie feels it too. As Jake leaves to get ready for class, Mark catches her glancing at him, her eyes like an unspoken invitation. He grips his glass tighter, telling himself to keep his distance, but deep down he wants to cross that line, just once. The drizzle clears, leaving Chicago cool and crisp, the air carrying the scent of wet pavement and lakefront breeze. Mark wakes on Jake's couch, the faint morning light filtering through the windows. Last night's restless sleep was haunted by Natalie, his best friend's mom, with her piercing eyes and cryptic smile. Mark, used to the laid-back life in Portland, feels adrift in this big city. He pulls on a faded tee, runs a hand through his messy hair, and tries to shake off the image of Natalie in her silk blouse. The moment her fingers brushed his, he tells himself to stay away. She's Jake's mom, a line he can't cross. But his heart, pulled tight by an invisible thread, won't listen. The house is quiet in the early morning. Jake left at 7 for his architecture class, leaving Mark alone. He heads to the kitchen for coffee, needing to clear his head. Soft footsteps echo from the hallway. Natalie appears in a thin white tee and black leggings, her hair tied up, a few wet strands framing her neck from a recent shower. The faint scent of lavender fills the air, stopping Mark in his tracks. She smiles lightly. Up early, Mark. Her voice is soft, but her eyes seem to unravel him. He clears his throat, trying to stay casual. Yeah, not much of a late sleeper. You sleep okay? Natalie tilts her head, her gaze lingering a moment too long. Pretty well. You? Was the couch rough on you? Mark forces a smile. Nah, it's fine, thanks. Natalie moves to the counter, grabbing a mug to brew coffee. Her tea clings to her, highlighting the soft curves of her shoulders and waist. Mark tries not to stare, opening the fridge for water just to keep busy, but he feels her eyes like a warm current tracking his every move. Had breakfast yet? She asks, her tone light. Mark shakes his head. Nah, coffee's fine. Natalie smiles, pulling out bread. I'm making eggs and toast. Can't let Jake's friend go hungry. Mark wants to protest, but her voice has a pull he can't resist. Thanks, he says, sitting at the table, heart racing. They eat breakfast together, just the two of them in the small kitchen. Mark sips his coffee, focusing on his plate, but the air between them feels thick. Natalie asks about his work, genuinely curious. Video editing sounds cool. Done anything big? Mark shrugs, mentioning a few music video gigs for local Portland bands. Nothing major, just enough to get by. Natalie leans forward, her eyes locked on his. You're too modest. I bet you've got better stories than that. Mark chuckles, feeling his face warm. What about you? Running an art gallery can't be easy. Natalie sips her coffee, her gaze distant. It keeps me busy, but sometimes it feels like I'm just playing a role, the strong, successful woman. No one sees the real me. Her words hit something deep in Mark. He looks at her, blurting out, "Stop them." Natalie looks up, her eyes sparking, as if he's touched a hidden truth. You sure about that, Mark? She asks, her voice a near whisper. Mark swallows, the air growing heavy. He wants to say something to break the tension, but before he can, Natalie stands, starting to clear the plates. Help me with the dishes, she says, her tone casual but her eyes still on him. Mark nods, moving to the sink. The small space forces them close, his shoulder brushing hers. He feels her breath, closer than it should be, and the lavender scent from her hair dizzies him. He washes a plate, hands trembling as her fingers graze his under the water. Mark freezes, heart pounding. Natalie looks at him, her eyes like fire. "Ever want to do something you know you shouldn't, Mark?" she asks, her voice soft but daring. Mark doesn't answer right away. A current runs through him, like the world's holding its breath. "Yeah," he says, voice hoarse, "but I'm not sure I'm brave enough." Natalie smiles, a mix of warmth and danger. Bravery isn't about not being scared, it's doing it anyway. She steps closer, just a small step, but enough for Mark to feel the heat of her body. He wants to back away, but his feet won't move. The air is thick, pulling them together. Mark looks into her eyes, seeing a desire he knows he shares. But before anything can happen, the doorbell rings. Jake walks in, backpack slung over his shoulder, voice booming. "Mom, Mark, I'm back. Got any food?" The moment shatters. Natalie turns to the sink, as if nothing happened. "Toast's in the kitchen," she says calmly. Mark sits at the table, trying to act normal, heart still racing. Jake doesn't notice, plopping down to talk about his day. Mark glances at Natalie, catching her eyes flicker toward him, a reminder that the moment wasn't a dream. When Jake heads to shower, Natalie turns to Mark. "Free this afternoon? I could use help organizing at the gallery. Come with me if you want." Mark knows it's not just about art. He should say no, keep his distance. But her eyes, like a forbidden call, pull him in. "Sure," he says, voice low. Natalie smiles, her eyes gleaming. "Good, I'll be waiting." Chicago's afternoon is cool, the sunset glinting off Lake Michigan, casting golden rays through the gallery's glass windows. Mark steps into the spacious art gallery, where abstract paintings hang on white walls, soft lighting highlighting every brushstroke. In a simple black tee and faded jeans, his tousled hair catching the light, Mark feels out of place in this refined space, but his heart races at the thought of Natalie, who invited him here, not just to see art. The moment in the kitchen, her fingers grazing his under the water, still burns in his mind. Her daring question, "Ever want to do something you know you shouldn't?" echoes like a spark. Mark knows he's treading into forbidden territory, but the pull is too strong to resist. Natalie stands in the corner, wearing a sleek black silk dress that hugs her elegant frame. Her dark hair shimmers under the lights, and she's adjusting a painting, her fingers gliding over the wooden frame with deliberate grace, as if aware Mark's watching. "You made it," she says, turning, her smile warm yet dangerous. Mark nods, keeping his voice steady. "Yeah, this place is amazing. How long have you run it?" Natalie steps closer, her eyes locked on his. 10 years. It's my world, but sometimes it's not enough." Her voice is low, laced with meaning, drawing him into her orbit. Mark swallows, the air thickening. "Not enough how?" he asks, voice rough. Natalie smiles, tilting her head. "You'll figure it out if you're brave enough to try." They walk through the gallery, Natalie explaining each painting, her voice like a melody pulling Mark into her world. But he can't focus. Every time she brushes close, her shoulder grazing his, a jolt runs through him. At a secluded corner beside a vibrant abstract painting, Natalie pauses, pointing to the swirling lines. "What do you see here?" she asks, leaning closer, her hair brushing his shoulder, carrying a faint lavender scent. Mark glances at the painting but is drawn to her, the curve of her neckline, the smooth skin of her throat. "Chaos, but beautiful," he says, voice shaky. Natalie turns, her eyes like fire. "Sometimes chaos makes us feel alive." She steps closer, their shoulders touching, and Mark feels the warmth of her body, her
like
breath,
a taut
string about to snap. Mark knows he should step back, leave, but he can't. "Natalie," he says, voice rough. "What are we doing?" She meets his gaze, unflinching. "Ever want to do something crazy, Mark? Just to feel your heart race?" Her words are a siren's call, dripping with temptation. Mark's breath catches, his hand brushing her waist, feeling the silk and the softness beneath. Natalie doesn't pull away, her eyes locked on his, lips parted, waiting. Mark leans in, their lips inches apart, breaths mingling, heart pounding. He wants to kiss her, to cross this forbidden line, but a noise from the front door jolts them apart. A gallery assistant, Lisa, walks in, calling out, "Natalie, I forgot my keys." The moment shatters. Natalie steps back, smiling at Lisa like nothing happened. "They're on the desk, hon," she says, voice steady. Mark turns to the painting, pretending to study it, heart still racing. When Lisa leaves, Natalie looks at Mark, her eyes still burning. "Stay after closing," she says, voice low, almost a whisper. "I want to show you a special piece." Mark, ascending order. Mark knows it's not just about art. He nods, voice rough. "Sure." He's stepping into a trap, but the pull of desire outweighs his caution. After closing, the gallery is silent, lit only by dim lights and their footsteps. Natalie leads Mark to a small room where a large canvas is draped with a cloth. She pulls it back, revealing a vibrant, emotional, abstract piece. "I painted this after my divorce," she says softly, "when I felt like I wasn't myself anymore." Mark looks at the painting, then at her. "You're still you, and you're incredible." He can't hold back. Natalie turns, her eyes soft, yet hungry. "You shouldn't say that, Mark," she whispers, stepping closer. "But I like hearing it." They stand inches apart, the air thick with tension. Mark touches her hand, his fingers tracing her smooth skin, feeling her pulse. Natalie grips his hand, pulling gently, as if words aren't needed. Mark's phone buzzes, shattering the moment. It's Ryan, a friend of Jake's. Mark answers, voice unsteady. "Yo, what's up?" Ryan laughs. "Where you at, man? Saw you at the gallery with Jake's mom. Getting cozy, huh?" Mark freezes, glancing at Natalie. She hears, her eyes flickering with worry, but she stays composed. Mark hangs up, voice low. "Ryan saw us at the gallery. People might talk." Natalie nods, her gaze steady. "Let them talk. I don't care." Mark shakes his head, stepping back. "You might not, but I do. Jake's my friend. We can't keep doing this." He turns, leaving the gallery, leaving Natalie by the painting. As the door closes, she texts him. "I don't regret it, Mark, but I respect your choice." Mark reads it on the way home, heart heavy, knowing he's walked away from what he wanted most. Rain pours down Chicago, turning the streets near Lake Michigan into shimmering rivers under the streetlights. Mark stands under the awning of a convenience store, his soaked tee clinging to his skin, water dripping from his messy hair. It's late, but sleep won't come. Natalie's image, her fiery eyes, her warm voice, haunts him since the gallery. Her words, "Ever want to do something crazy? Just to feel your heart race," echo in his mind. He knows he ran from the gallery to avoid crossing a forbidden line. But now, his heart, burning with forbidden desire, urges him back. He pulls out his phone, texting Natalie. "Left my headphones at your place. Can I swing by?" It's a flimsy excuse. Her reply is instant. "Door's unlocked. I'm waiting." Mark trudges through puddles, heart pounding as he reaches Natalie's brownstone. The door's ajar, warm light spilling out. He knocks lightly, and Natalie appears, her hair wet and clinging to her shoulders, her white silk blouse sticking to her skin from running out to find him in the rain. "Mark," she says, voice trembling, eyes glowing in the dark, "you're soaked." Mark steps inside, closing the door, the narrow hallway forcing them close. The scent of lavender and rain makes his head spin. "I'm sorry for leaving like that," he says, voice rough. "I didn't know what to do." Natalie looks at him, her eyes soft yet fierce. "Neither do I, Mark, but I can't stop thinking about you, even though it's wrong." They stand inches apart, the air heavy like before a storm. Mark feels her breath, sees her chest rise and fall under the thin blouse. "Natalie," he whispers, "we shouldn't." But his hand, with a mind of its own, touches her shoulder, fingers tracing her wet skin, feeling her warmth. Natalie doesn't pull back. She takes his hand, pulling gently, eyes locked on his. "I know," she says, voice low. "But do you dare be true to what you feel? Just once." Her words ignite him, shattering his restraint. He leans in, their lips meeting softly at first, then fiercely, like they're unleashing years, passionate yet delicate, like a dance of suppressed emotions. Mark pulls her close, feeling the silk under his hands, her warmth merging with his. Natalie responds, her fingers threading through his hair, pulling him closer, breaths quickening. Rain pounds outside, drowning out the world. As if nothing else exists, they stumble back against the hallway wall, lips never parting. Mark's heart races, his body burning with the forbidden thrill. But he pulls back, breathing hard, eyes conflicted. "Natalie," he says, voice raw, "I don't want to hurt Jake. Or you." Natalie looks at him, eyes glistening, but she smiles softly. "You're not hurting me, Mark. You made me feel alive, even for a moment." She touches his cheek, fingers trembling. But you're right. We can't go on. Mark takes her hand, squeezing gently, wanting to hold on to this moment. I don't regret it, he says firmly. But I can't let Jake lose trust in me. Natalie nods, her eyes warm but pained. I understand, and I respect you for it. They stand there, hands clasped, unwilling to let go, but knowing this is the end. Mark's phone buzzes. It's Jake calling from school. Mark, where you at? Ryan said you were at my mom's gallery yesterday. What's up? Mark stiffens, glancing at Natalie. She hears, her eyes flickering with worry. Mark keeps his voice steady. Just checking out some art, man. Grabbing my stuff from your place now. Jake laughs, clueless. Cool. Beers tonight? Mark hangs up, guilt rising. He looks at Natalie, voice low. Ryan got pics of us at the gallery. Might have posted them. Natalie sighs, sinking into a chair, hands on her head. Let them say what they want, Mark. I don't want you dragged into this mess. Mark kneels before her, eyes resolute. I'm not scared of rumors, but I'm scared of hurting the people I care about. And you mean more than I expected. Natalie's eyes shimmer, but she smiles. You're a good man, Mark. Don't let this change that. He stands, grabbing his headphones from the table. A now meaningless excuse. He looks at her one last time. I won't forget you, he says, voice breaking. Natalie nods, silent, her eyes holding him as if to keep him there. Mark leaves, stepping into the rain, not looking back. He knows Ryan's photo might be spreading, with snarky comments about the young guy and his friend's mom. He knows Natalie's family, Jake's friends, and the world will judge. But in his heart, that forbidden kiss, though fleeting, was real. He sits on a park bench nearby, rain soaking through, and checks his phone. Ryan's post pops up, a blurry shot of Mark and Natalie close in the gallery, captioned, "What's going on here?" Mark deletes the notification, takes a deep breath. He knows it has to end, but the fire Natalie sparked in him still burns. Impossible to extinguish. The rain clears, leaving Chicago bright and fresh, sunlight filtering through the trees along Lake Michigan, sparkling on the water. Mark sits in a small coffee shop tucked in a corner by the lakefront, clutching a cold black coffee. 3 weeks have passed since that rainy night when he and Natalie crossed the forbidden line with a searing, fleeting kiss. Today, Mark's preparing to leave Chicago for Portland, hoping to find peace again. But first, he needs to see Natalie one last time, not to rekindle the flame, but to say goodbye, to close a chapter that can't have a happy ending. The cozy shop, with its worn wooden tables and roasted coffee aroma, is where they agreed to meet. Mark arrives early, sitting by the window, heart jumping with every jingle of the door. He thinks of that kiss, the warmth of her body, her fingers in his hair, her eyes full of desire and regret. Ryan's photo from the gallery, showing them too close, spread online with snide remarks. Young guy and his buddy's mom. Gallery lady's new fling. Mark faced sidelong glances from Jake's friends. Natalie dealt with family and work gossip, yet she never reached out to blame him. Her last text, I don't regret it, Mark, but I respect your choice, sits in his phone like a bittersweet scar. The door chimes. Natalie walks in, wearing a soft blue silk blouse, hair tied low, eyes still sharp but softer now. She smiles, seeing Mark, a gentle smile, free of the old daring edge. You're early, she says, sitting across from him, hands resting lightly on the table. Mark nods, keeping his voice steady. Didn't want to keep you waiting. Natalie orders a coffee, her eyes tracing him like she's memorizing his face. Leaving Chicago soon? She asks softly. Mark nods. Yeah, heading back to Portland tomorrow. Fresh start. Natalie nods, her eyes tinged with sadness. Good. In the quiet Chicago's shop. Probably eyes meeting, full of unspoken words. Mark breaks the silence. Natalie, I want to thank you. You made me feel alive, even if just for a moment. Natalie smiles, fingers brushing her coffee mug. No need to thank me, Mark. You did the same for me. I'd forgotten who I was until you showed up. Her words cut deep, sweet, and painful. Mark sees her eyes glisten, but she stays composed. I'm sorry about the gossip, he says, voice rough. I didn't want to hurt you or Jake. Natalie shakes her head, touching his hand lightly, her fingers cool yet warm. Don't apologize. I don't regret it, Mark. That moment was worth it. They sit in silence, hands touching, holding on to the moment. Mark recalls that rainy night, their lips meeting, her heartbeat under the wet silk. He remembers her gaze, like he was the only one in the world, but he also recalls Jake's trusting eyes and the guilt of leaving her house. Ever wonder, what if things were different? He asks, voice low. Natalie smiles, eyes distant. Every day. But if things were different, it wouldn't be so special. Sometimes it's beautiful because it can't last. Mark nods, heart heavy, yet lighter. She's right. Natalie stands, pulling a small, wrapped painting from her bag. For you, she says, handing it to him. A goodbye gift. Mark unwraps it, revealing a small, abstract piece, vibrant swirls like the one she showed him at the gallery. You painted this, he asks, voice catching. Natalie nods. When I was thinking of you. Mark grips the canvas, speechless. He wants to hug her, to say he'll never forget her, but instead he stands, stepping close. Natalie, he says, voice raw. Thank you. For everything. They hug. A gentle embrace, no kisses, no promises, just a real, pure moment of farewell. Mark leaves the shop, stepping onto the lakefront path, the small painting in hand. He glances back through the glass, seeing Natalie sitting there, watching him with a sad smile. He knows he won't see her again, not because he doesn't want to, but because they both know their story is over. Mark walks on, sunlight filtering through the trees, feeling an odd peace. Natalie changed him, made him face his true feelings, even if just for a fleeting moment. Did Mark and Natalie's story stir your heart? A forbidden love, beautiful but doomed, leaving lessons of courage and truth. Have you ever had a moment like that? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Hidden Tales for more emotional love stories. Hit like, ring the bell, and join us in celebrating love's fleeting flames. Hidden Tales, where every love story deserves to be told.